Welcome back to the KickNPost YouTube channel, and today I will be ranking a roster from our inaugural Dynasty Football League, KickNPost Dyno. At the end of the draft video, I told you guys I'd start breaking down rosters, and today we get into our first one. And this roster has a lot of interesting pieces, and I've come up with a formula, not patented, not exactly scientific, that gives me ratings on each player and how I feel like they'll contribute to this roster and how they play into the league. Please enjoy the video. Let's hop into this one. So as an avid Dynasty player, I've come up with my own kind of formula. I like to call it the ADR, Amal's Dynasty Rankings, not patented, not trademarked, but soon to come. And this rating system comes up with a few factors. We get into player value, and what I mean by player value is pretty much market value. How is he viewed? How easy is it for the player to be traded? What will that player offer to your roster if you're trying to compete now? But also, what is the future prospects of selling that player at a premium? Or will this player be definitely half the value at the end of the season, whether it be on age, whether it be on changing situation, whether it be on somebody taking the guards? We also factor in immediate points scored. We also factor in, unfortunately, off the field issues. There's a ton that goes into it. And today we're ranking MCW4HF, or as I like to call it, Mick for Woof, right? And if we bring up this roster, you'll see the people on the side. We'll hop into his starting quarterback, Deshaun Watson, which unfortunately I have at an ADR ranking of 7. Now, why 7? I feel like this is a rank that could go up and down. If the suspensions that are discussed take place, we're talking like a year, his rating, in my opinion, goes down to a 5 because he's not completely gone from the roster, but this year you'll be getting no points. Once his situation is completely sorted out, people will expect him to play beginning next year, so he holds some trade value. His name value is still there. He's still a very interesting prospect for Dynasty, which is the setting that we're in, obviously. This is a super flex league, which keeps his value pretty high. He's joining a line. He's joining an offense where the offensive line is currently ranked number 2 on PFF, if I'm not mistaken. Very solid offensive line. Weapons are still a little bit lacking, but as I said, if he's on the field within 6 to 8 games, his ranking goes up. We're talking probably a 9 to a 10. I feel like trouble will unfortunately follow Deshaun Watson his whole career, so his rating will probably never be a 9 or a 10 for me. I'm comfortable putting him at a 7 because I do believe if he plays this year, he'll produce. That rating will go up. But if he's suspended the whole year, that rating is definitely liable to go down. The next person on this rating list, Antonio Gibson. I have Antonio Gibson rated as a 6. Unfortunately, I feel like his trade value has dropped dramatically from last year. You have additions to his backfield, Brian Robinson. I don't think he's a very great prospect, but I do believe he will immediately take touches from Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick leaving was going to be wheels up for him. Fortunately, he re-signed. So now that passing work we're expecting to get out of Antonio Gibson, that also diminishes somewhat. I don't believe he's a part of a great offense. I don't think they're going to have a ton of red zone visits. I also think that he has shown the ability to get injured, and you can't really depend on him on being your RB1. I am very comfortable saying that he's a good depth piece. I feel like he'll produce for you better than expected, but right now he's just kind of in that RB void type. You're not going to invest very highly in a guy like Antonio Gibson, and for that reason, I have him at an ADR rating of a 6. Right to the next running back on this roster, CEH, which I feel like, again, falls into a very similar situation. Right now, his trade value is fairly low, a very murky backfield situation. They re-signed Jerick McKinnon. They sign Ronald Jones from Tampa Bay. The offense, I still think, will be pretty elite, but it lost a very viable weapon in Tyreek Hill. We can't discount the fact that Patrick Mahomes will be playing with, outside of Travis Kelce, receivers that he's not really relied on in the past, or brand new receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster and Sky Moore. I feel like CEH will be a good value piece for your roster if you have him for depth, and this roster does have him for depth. Unfortunately, is depending on him to be in the starting lineup, which is also why the rating's a little bit lower. I think he'll produce pretty well. But the reason I have him at a 6 instead of like a little bit lower, because I was thinking about a 5 or a 4, they have very enticing matchups the beginning of the year. And I feel like with the Kansas City name value, you'll be able to flip CEH for a good value going forward if you're trying to sell high. And for that reason, I feel like you could acquire some trade value, go up a little bit, and you'll be able to move for a good price when the season starts. But as of now, he's rated a 6 on my ADR scale. And then we have the first 10 that I've discussed since starting the video. He has a very elite wide receiver core, if you ask me. Justin Jefferson, Jay Jettas. He is a 10. Why? Everything checks the box. Age, young, check. Breakout, already happened. In abundance, check. Number 1 in his offense, check. Name value, check. You could sell this guy as top 5 wide receiver for the next 6 to 8 years. Easy. Check. So in terms of ADR ranking, 10 out of 10. You can't go wrong there. And then I have Cooper Kupp also at a 10, even though his 10 is a little different. Great offense. Broke out last year. Offense, I feel like, is going to be improving. Second year with Matthew Stafford. He has fairly high value right now, but that age is up there. This is a 10 that could easily diminish to a 9 or an 8 by the end of the season. If his ceiling isn't hit again, which I feel like is very hard to hit that ceiling twice, if you have a guy like Allen Robinson come in there and take away a lot of that volume, take away a lot of that scoring, then Cooper Kupp's preseason 10 that I have right here in the ADR rankings could easily slip to a 9 or 8. That doesn't mean he's not a good player. That just means in Dynasty, his value is a little bit diminished based on age and other factors. But right now, I have to give him that preseason 10. Very solid option. And his starting wide receivers are very elite on this roster. We have his tight end that he's starting currently, Mike Gesicki. I have him at a 6. I'm not a huge fan of Mike Gesicki, and the tight end position is super thin. Very, very thin. So it's easy for me to give Mike Gesicki a 6. There's a lot of benefits. He's fairly cheap. Unfortunately, I don't think he holds that much trade value. That's another reason why he's at a 6. But I believe that the offense will be sneaky good, and he'll be a good producer for you. So the 6 kind of factors in that he won't be an easy piece to trade unless he goes crazy. He probably will be a top 10 tight end, which doesn't say much because, again, the position is super thin. Once you get past the big 4, you can kind of plug and pick just based on who's having good weeks. So in terms of just having a guy in the spot, this is a tight end premium. I'm comfortable giving Mike Gesicki a 6. We hop into his flex plays currently. This could easily change. I know he just has fillers in there. I have Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is a 3, in my opinion. I think the offense is poor. I think, again, backfield situation has not been carved out. It's very murky. I feel like his name value right now is very low. Didn't get a ton of touches in that Indianapolis offense last year. The last time he had opportunities to get a ton of touches to start the year, he did have the starting job over Jonathan Taylor in Jonathan Taylor's rookie year. Tore his Achilles on like the first series, which usually is a death, pretty much a market death on most running backs. He was able to bounce back. Took a little bit longer compared to a guy like Cam Akers. But, of course, that's a freak of nature. That's out of the norm. But Marlon Mack could very well be the starting running back in Houston, or he could be the number 2, or he could even be the number 3. And that's why his rating is a 3, because when you're selling Marlon Mack, you're getting pennies on the dollar for what he might produce. The most you could get Marlon Mack for... The most you could get for a Marlon Mack is probably a 3rd-round pick, in my opinion. And for that reason, he's a 3 out of 10 on my ADR ranking scale. I feel like there is potential for him to give you sneaky upside. But unfortunately, you will not be able to move him. And if he's on your roster, you're either selling for pennies on the dollar, or you're just going to ride out to see where he lands on the depth chart come September. And then we have Devin Singletary also on this roster, who I have ranked at a 5. In a great offense, again, a backfield that we still don't know how it's going to shape up. In my opinion, he'll probably be the 1st and 2nd down back. I think James Cook, who recently got drafted by the Buffalo Bills in the 2nd round, would be more of a playmaking type back. This Bills team tried to sign J.D. McKissick in the offseason. Every report was saying that he was signed, but then he changed his mind. I think they drafted James Cook to be their J.D. McKissick plus, right? He might get a couple of touches. He'll definitely run some routes out of the slot. He's a huge yak ability type of back. and he will take some touches away from Devin Singletary, but not the typical touches that Devin Singletary gets. This offense will get in the red zone. Unfortunately, Josh Allen is a big proponent of taking those red zone touches. But Devin Singletary has upside. He's young in a great offense, and if he's able to carve out a good role for a second down back, he holds trade value in an offense that's pretty solid. Because unlike a guy like me who was projecting a Breece Hall to get drafted by Buffalo, they actually waited and took James Cook, which was actually a positive, in my opinion, for Devin, instead of them taking a bruiser back or signing like a Leonard Fournette in free agency, who would have definitely taken those first down and second down touches. So rating of 5 on the ADR scale for Devin Singletary. Next up, Justin Fields. Now, his rookie year was abysmal. In a Matt Nagy ran offense, it did not really cater to his skills. They did not get creative plays ran for the kid. They had him taking sack after sack after sack, taking abuse, killing his confidence. But one of the positive things about playing in Superflex leagues is quarterbacks will hold value until they're no longer starting quarterbacks. And Justin Fields, young, we already have the excuse built into why he struggled. Still a dual threat option. The offense is very thin, so they're probably going to allow him to use his legs this year. They're going to probably simplify the offense a ton, seeing that it's him, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and running backs. That's it. Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery out there. They do not have a ton of passing options, so I'm comfortable having Justin Fields at a 7 coming into his sophomore year. And then we'll see where things go. He still has trade value. You can still get quite a bit just off the name value and the fact that he was a part of that projected elite quarterback class of last year. Drew Lock, I have set at a 5. He's not been announced the starter out in Seattle. Right now, it seems like Geno Smith is. But if you trade for Drew Lock and he starts performing in training camp, he could easily take that starting job. Why is he a 5? Because he's a quarterback, and there's potential for him to start. I do believe that he will not start. I do believe Baker Mayfield will be on his way to Seattle soon. You're just waiting to see how this Deshaun Watson situation plays out. But as a guy who could possibly start, he's a 5. I will not lie to you. If Baker Mayfield gets sent over there, though, Drew Lock will be easily a 3 because he'll now be the third person on that depth chart in an offense that is poor. And I don't see him sneaking a starting job away from Baker. I don't think Baker is amazing, but I think he's enough to hold off Drew Lock. But currently, as the rosters stand, I have Drew Lock at a 5. Daniel Jones, I have at a 6. Starting quarterback for New York. Dual threat, even though he doesn't get the credit, has significant weapons in the offense. They added Wan'Dale Robinson in the second round. They have Kadarius Toney, who I'm very high on. Sterling Shepard will be out for a while. Kenny Galladay's been a shell of himself since he's got to New York, but he's still out there. I believe this is the year of Saquon. They're going to use him all over the field, contract year. So I believe that they're going to get their usage out of Saquon crazy. He will be able to produce some yards after catch and probably get Daniel Jones some easy yardage from a fantasy perspective. And I do believe if Daniel Jones is able to play well this year, he'll be comfortably the starter for New York next year. But if he struggles, New York might start to look in a different direction if they're able to, lock in another top 5 pick, because this upcoming draft has guys like C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. People are falling in love with Will Levis out of Kentucky. So he needs to step it up. And I feel like they have the system for him to possibly be that guy. But starting quarterback, I'm going to give him a 6. He's had multiple years to show that he's that guy and has not. Hence the 6. If it was his sophomore year, he probably would have been right there to 7 with Justin Fields, but I'm comfortably giving him a 6 on the ADR scale. Dameon Pierce. Now, this is a player I love a lot. Dameon Pierce could be summed up by this one run. I'll throw the clip up. This one run will show you why I like Dameon Pierce. Hard runner. And I believe he'll be a way better pro than he was in college because he didn't get the volume in college. He's one of those guys, low volume, but when he stepped on the field, the efficiency was crazy. I have him between a 5 and a 6. Because I like Dameon Pierce, I'm going to give him a 6. Rookie running backs seem to always get a lot of hype. His name value is there. People know what they're getting with Dameon Pierce, so that also brings his ranking up high. He is stuck in that situation where the backfield is murky, but again, rookies hold better value. People get excited over rookies. His talent is there. His measurables are there. and he could very well be the number one back in Houston. But what does that mean? I don't think it's very valuable to be the number one back in Houston. I think it'll be good for touches, but I don't think they'll have many red zone visits. And unless he's catching passes, he might be kind of like, yeah, he's the starter, but what scoring are you getting? I could comfortably say if he wins the number one spot, though, he'll be an easy sell high candidate preseason. That's why he's a 6 on my ADR scale. So, Damian Pierce, at a rating of 6. Chris Godwin. Because of the injury and the setback timetable-wise, I have him at a 6. But as soon as he's healthy and we're able to see that he's still Chris Godwin, easily an 8 or higher. I can't give a guy with that injury, possibly missing the first 6 to 8 games of the year, anything higher than a 6 because it's hard to trade Chris Godwin at this point in time. Unless you're trading to a roster that's competing and they're willing and they have a solid enough weapon like trove, they have a bunch of wide receivers on the bench that could fill in until Chris Godwin gets healthy, you won't be able to sell Chris Godwin. Or unless you have a team that's rebuilding and they're okay taking those L's, and you could move Chris Godwin in a pick for probably somebody that will play those first 6 weeks. I have him currently at a 6, but as soon as he's healthy, he'll be on the field. He'll be an 8 if he's same old Chris Godwin that was once the number 2 wide receiver when getting Jameis Winston as his quarterback, tossing him the ball. MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I am not a Marquez Valdes-Scantling fan, but that KC name value will carry weight. He's been projected to be the new deep threat out there in Kansas City. I'm okay with the amount of targets he'll be getting most likely. I love that Patrick Mahomes will be throwing him the ball, but let's not act like he had a poor quarterback before Patrick. We had Aaron Rodgers, who was also a good deep ball thrower, and MVS was I hate to say it, but bust. I have MVS at a 4 on my scale, because even though he'll carry that KC name value, if he produces, you'll be able to sell. But if he flops, he might be on the waivers. That's his peak and his bottom. His peak is 4 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. His bottom is 1 catch for 25 yards. And we don't really need that. If he fails, he'll be hard to sell. If he booms, you might be able to move him off of boom week. But everybody's seen enough from MVS, in my opinion, and that's why his rating is a 4. I have his former teammate, Alan Lazard, at a 4. And the main reason I have Alan Lazard at a 4, he does not have good name value. He is most likely the number 1 wide receiver in Green Bay. I will say right here, right now, that we will be probably discussing Alan Lazard as wide receiver 1 in Green Bay after the first 4 weeks of the season. It's the guy that Aaron Rodgers is most comfortable with. Aaron Rodgers has touted him in offseason camp. Aaron Rodgers has touted him last year. And I feel like when the season begins, and also him being picked in the 15th round of this draft, you really didn't have to invest much for possibly the number 1 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. The only reason he's at a 4 is you can't move him. No one's really going to be able to buy Alan Lazard for what his potential technically is. And nobody's going to be able to invest at what he'll be producing. So you have to hold this player. A very similar player to Alan Lazard in that way is kind of like an Adam Thielen. I'm not saying they're the same type of player, the same producer, but Adam Thielen will give you points, but you won't be able to sell him. Too old, right? Alan Lazard is going to provide you points, but no one's going to believe that Alan Lazard is the wide receiver 1 consistently until probably till the end of the season, right? So unfortunately, based on what you'll be able to sell him, his name value, he's a 4 on my scale. I think he'll produce higher than a 4, but he's a 4 based on value. Gabe Davis. Now, this is my UCF kid. I love Gabe, but the hype has gotten unreal. Now, in this draft, I think he was drafted fairly. 10th round pick, very fair based on his production. If he hits the peak that a lot of people are seeing him go, that's an ultimate steal right there. 10th round could end up being a steal. In my opinion, I feel like we're in for a 850-yard receiving year, not even 1,000. I think Diggs is still out there. I think Dawson Knox is still out there. I think they added James Cook. I think they have Jamison Crowder. There's too many mouths to feed, and I don't think they're just going to be like, okay, yeah, I know we signed Stephon Diggs to an extreme extension. Let's feed the ball to Gabe Davis. I think he'll do well. I think he'll have his boom weeks, but I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Buffalo. I have him at a 7 because you can sell Gabe Davis on the name value now. Based on that playoff game he had against Kansas City last year, you could sell him solely off that. Name value crazy. If he flops in the beginning of the year, his value will drop. But if he goes crazy at the beginning of the year, you will be able to get back some insane value from Dynasty guys who think they've found the next gem, very young receiver to possibly take over for the next few years. If they think he's going to ascend into the ranks of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and be one of the next big receivers that are youthful and are going to be tethered to a good quarterback going forward, you could sell just based on that argument. My opinion, I think he'll be a solid producer. But if he was to snap and I had him on my team, I'm willing to sell high. And I'm a UCF fan and I'm a Gabe Davis fan, so take that as you will. Next person on my rankings, Christian Watson. He has great name value. He is a rookie. He will be tethered to Aaron Rodgers. Super athletic. Killed the combine, right? Is a super raw talent. And there's a reason why at NDSU he wasn't able to produce at an elite level. It is a D2 school. He should have been going crazy. He was not going crazy, right? We could chalk that up to bad quarterback play. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he had a year with Trey Lance. So what does that mean? I believe you'll be able to sell off the name value, and a lot of people think he was drafted to be Aaron Rodgers #1. I think he has a lot of growing to do, and if he flops at the beginning of the year, it's a great buy low opportunity. So I'm good with having Christian Watson at a 7 right now because, again, you could trade him just based on 1, he was probably a first-round pick in your rookie drafts. 2, the investment was high enough by the Packers and by you in fantasy to be like, hey, he's young, and if he breaks out, you probably drafted the next Devontae Adams for Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe that, but you could easily sell that in a trade talk and get good value back for a guy like Christian Watson. And that's why he's at a 7 for me on my scale. Logan Thomas is a 2, coming off injury, older tight end, in a bad offense. I want no parts of that. Honestly, he's waiver wire material. So Logan Thomas, 2 in my scale. Cole Kmet, I have between a 7 and an 8. Young tight end in a very thin position. Many targets to go around out there in Chicago. Touted to be the next breakout tight end. Lots of name value. So I'm good with having him at a 7 or an 8. I checked out the taxi squad. Not many players of consequence on there. Have the whole taxi squad at a 2. All of them had low draft capital. None of them carry like a ton of name value. Most interesting piece, I think, is Isaiah Pacheco, if I remember correctly. He'd probably be like 5th on the depth chart, so I want no parts of that. And then 2023 value picks, 2023 rookie picks. I have that at a 7. 2023 is getting a ton of hype. The rookie class is getting a ton of hype. Based on what I see on his roster, I think MCW McWolf will have a pretty high 2023 rookie pick. Not throwing shade. This is just my predictions. And if it lands in the top 5, that's going to be a 10 out of 10 asset for Dynasty players. Bijan Robinson, CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Bryce Young, Jamar Gibbs. Tons of players, tons of talent. Will Levis if he breaks out, right? Tons of talent. And you'll be able to sell that as a talking point to whoever is buying 2023 picks. 2023 picks are gold pretty much at this point in time. And I feel like his pick will be a decent pick. And even if it's not, you could sell a 2023 first for a very good supporting player, or you could flip it and a player and level up. Right? People are trying to acquire these 2023 picks pretty heavily. So if you have 2023 picks, especially the first round pick, I'm going to have you at minimum at a 7. So he has his first, his second, and his third still on the roster. So those assets add up to a 7 for me. So his ADR ranking scale, as it goes on, will be added up. I'll have it here slotted on this chart. Currently, he'll be the number 1 roster because I have no other rosters ranked right now. As I drop the other rosters, we'll see if he stays up there or where it falls on the list. I'd like to thank you guys, hopefully, for tuning into the whole video. This is how I'll be ranking my rosters in this league. If you want a little bit more insight onto how I do this, drop it in the comments. Hey, how did you come to this solution? How did you come to this number? and I'll do a video breaking down kind of what I did scale-wise to come up with these rankings. All right? Thank y'all for tuning into the video, and I'll see y'all on the next one.